Here's something we may not think about often enough, and that's that at any time, all of us are doing one of two things. We are either growing or we are remaining stagnant. Now, if stagnant is good enough for you, then this is probably your cue to click off this video and go to a different channel, because this channel is for folks who are committed to growing and getting better. But that leaves us with the question of how do we dream big and set goals and work towards those things we want to achieve in our life, while also being realistic and not setting ourselves up for failure. And the other question is, what does all this have to do with goals? Hi, if we've not met before, I'm Shelley from Taming Frenzy. There's probably not a single one of us who hasn't set a goal and then failed to achieve it. Raise your hand if you can relate. I talked in a previous video about how to deal with the obstacles that come up when we're trying to reach our goals. I'll leave a link to it in the description below, or you can click the card in the corner. Oftentimes, though, we are the biggest obstacle to achieving our own goals. And that's because we end up setting goals that are totally unrealistic. And when we do that, we set ourselves up for total failure. For example, if I set a goal of running a marathon at the end of next month, I can guarantee you I would fail. That's just not in the cards for me at this stage of my life. Also, if I set the goal of climbing Mount Everest at some point in time, I would also fail big time. I have lung issues with my cancer, and there's no way I could do something like that. That would be a goal that would set me up for total failure. But here's where it gets interesting. We need to set goals that are realistic for us, but that also stretch us a little bit and cause us to have to learn a little bit or expand on some skills. We have to do just a little bit more than we currently think we can. We also need to set realistic goals that stretch us somewhat, while also keeping in mind that in the future we will be different people. I came across this concept in this book. It's called Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And if you have not read this book, I highly, highly recommend it. I have highlighted so much and made so many notes. This is a fantastic book. Strongly recommend it to you. I will leave a link to that book in the comments below. But as I was reading this book, it finally became clear to me why so many of us have had a really hard time dreaming big and thinking big. And that's because we can't see ourselves in the future, or we're assuming that who we are right now is who we're always going to be. And it's hard to imagine yourself doing great big things when you're looking at yourself right now, because you see the discrepancy between the two and you feel like you'll never be able to do or live up to that great big goal or dream that you've got for yourself. When we can't see ourselves as something different, it's hard to work towards something different. And we end up holding ourselves back because we think that we'll never be anything more than we currently are. We assume that who we are now is who we're going to be till we die, and that's not the case. And this may be a big if for some people, but if we are working to constantly learn and grow, then we will become different in the future than we are right now. We will have gained skills and experiences and things that will cause us to be different than we are right now. So that person in the future will be able to do bigger, bolder, better things. And that's because of the growth. So go ahead. Take the time to create a big, bold vision for your life in the future. But in the meantime, while we are still growing, it's important to set goals that are realistic and that we can achieve with some work. Now, I don't mean goals that are so simple that it takes no effort or anything that we could achieve them in our sleep. I'm not talking about that kind of a goal. That's not realistic. Our goals should cause us to stretch and learn a little bit more and become a little bit more capable than we are right now. It's like our goals should cause us to take just a couple of steps outside of our comfort zone or our current skill set so that we have to grow just a little bit and learn just a little bit more and actually to achieve them. There is a difference between realistic goals that we can achieve with just a little bit of extra work and effort on our part, and between those that are so outlandish and so out there that there's no way we could achieve them right now. So let's rethink that goal about running a marathon, okay? At this particular moment in my life, I would fall flat on my face if I signed up and got to the starting line of running a marathon. There'd be no way I could complete it. In fact, I'd fall flat on my face Probably literally, to be real honest. But this doesn't mean that in the future, with work and with growth and with learning, that I might not be able to do that at some point in the future. So a realistic goal for now might be to start to make sure that I get my 10,000 steps in at least 3 days a week. It's still going to be a little bit of a stretch for me, but it's something that I can work towards. And it's much more realistic for me at this stage of life right now. And while that's still a bit of a stretch for me right now, it's realistic and it's a step in the right direction. It's something I can do with some attention and some planning. Then when that goal is met, and I'm doing that consistently 3 times a week, let's set a new goal. Say the next goal is to get 10,000 steps in every single day of the week. You notice how that's a little bit of a step up from just 3 times a week. So when that becomes a part of my daily routine and I have met that goal, my next goal might be to find, sign up for, and participate in a 5K walk. You see that each of these goals is building a little bit on the one before it. We started with 10,000 steps 3 times a week, went to 10,000 steps 7 days a week, and now we're going to look at competing in a 5K walk. Most of us are just not capable of jumping from point A to point Z, but that doesn't mean we take our eyes off of point Z while we're at point A and while we're taking the steps in between to get there. Now, the next step in achieving our goals is to be smart about it. This means that writing those vague goals like, write a book sometime this year, just aren't going to cut it. Instead, we are literally going to write SMART goals. Now, you may have heard of SMART goals before. SMART is an acronym. The S stands for specific. The M stands for measurable. The A stands for achievable. R is for relevant. And T is for timely or time-bound. A specific goal is one that has the parameters neatly laid out. It's easy to tell when we've achieved it because we have already looked at those specific terms. Specific also means that you have thought about and taken time to write down the steps that you're going to need to take in order to achieve that goal. The goal of walking 10,000 steps a day is very specific. It's also measurable, which leads into the next one, the M. You can measure the number of steps you're taking with the pedometer. You can track how many days of the week you've walked. Those are things you can easily measure and check off and see that you've done. Anything that you can put a number to is measurable. Achievable means that it is within your current set of abilities or only slightly outside your current set of abilities. Achievable goals are the realistic ones, like I talked about earlier. They will require a bit of commitment from you, and they may be just a little bit of a stretch, but they are not so far outside the realm of your current skill set or ability that there's just no way you can do them right now. Relevant means that the goal is important to you in some way. Relevant goals should be tied with your long-range vision. It's not just something you're doing to keep busy or that you're doing for the heck of it. And then timely or time-bound means we have set a deadline. Having a deadline gives you that extra push or that extra impetus to make sure that you work on this regularly and that you meet that deadline. It forces you to go ahead and get the thing done. Now, all of these things together gives you a very clear goal that you can take steps to work on and then have clear evidence when you have gotten to the finish line and achieved the goal. There will be no doubt in your mind. You'll know you've achieved it. And another important thing to remember is that goal setting is not just a one-and-done kind of thing. As you achieve one set of goals, then you'll come back and you'll make another set of goals. It's also important to regularly revisit your goals to make sure that you're still on track and to make adjustment and tweaks if you need to get back on track. Now, it can be helpful to share your goal with someone who is totally supportive of you. However, this is not going to be everybody you know, so I encourage you to be selective with who you choose to share your goals with. You want to make sure that person is 100% on your side and committed to your success, and is not someone who is going to do anything to sabotage your achievement of that goal. The wrong person can be a hindrance rather than a help. It also helps to write your goals down and keep them someplace where you can refer to them regularly, daily if possible. Whether you do this on paper or whether you do this in a digital app, that's totally up to you. But regularly checking in with those goals to make sure that you're on track is an important part of the process. If it's out of sight, it tends to be out of mind, and those are goals that don't get met. As you do this over a period of time, you create and achieve a set of goals, and then you create and achieve another set of goals, and so on. You're going to find yourself becoming that future self that they talked about in this book. And as you do that, you will begin to see that big, bold vision that you have for your life and your future self all begin to come into play and begin to coalesce. You'll find that a new you is emerging. At some point in the future, you may look back and be utterly amazed by how far you've come and how much you've learned and how much you've grown. That big, bold vision that you had for your life may be closer than you ever dreamed it could be when you were constrained by that old version of yourself. So what's stopping you? Leave me a comment below and tell me. I would love to hear how it's going for you. And if you found value in this, please consider subscribing and hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate it.